more versatile you can be, the more people you're going to play with, and the more situations you're going to create for yourself. And that's something that has been a focus for me my whole life, you know, and it's still happening today.
You speak so eloquently and like beautifully about the music itself and the expression of it. It to me, the way you look at it is almost spiritual. For you, is music a spiritual experience?
It is a spiritual experience, yes. And it's about your soul and your feeling in your expression. Like, you know, you listen to John Coltrane, the way he played a ballad, so much love in his sound and his approach about singing that melody, and that melody becomes every melody that he played. You know, you could be impressed by John Coltrane's technique and the way he gets around the horn, for sure. You know, and you are,
of course.
That teaches you
a lot
to reach for. Like Diz, you know, you study Dizzy Gillespie, man. Trumpet players that aren't hip to Diz or running away from Diz are missing a lot.
Yeah.
Because Diz has given everybody lots of stuff to reach for, man. Coming from Art Tatum and coming from other people that inspired him to reach.
Yeah.
Same with Bird and same with Coltrane, you know. But when you listen to John Coltrane play a ballad, that always like was the most, for me, the impressive thing. When I joined Elvin Jones' band, I first sat in with Elvin at Swanning Dog, 1975. Dave Liebman had just left the band, and Steve Grossman was playing with Roland Prince on guitar. Elvin got Roland Prince on guitar after Lieb split. So instead of having two saxophones, he had a quartet guitar. They came to the Dog. I was in some bands opposite them with Ernie Krivda and some others, and my own groups, and met Elvin and asked him if I could sit in, and he had heard me, and he let me play the one night, and then I ended up sitting in 4 nights.
Oh wow! Yeah.
With an open invitation to come and say hello and sit in anytime.
Yeah.
That led to me joining his band and getting called for gigs starting around 1982. I subbed for Pat LaBarbera on some gigs, and then toured Europe for 9 weeks in '87. But the heart of the gig with Elvin, we played a 90-minute set, 3 tunes. The middle tune was a ballad, and that was the heart of the set. All the other tunes were some real explosive, amazing music, you know, with a lot of energy and focus. Because as a quartet with Elvin, or sometimes there were 2 saxophones, but most of the gigs I did was a quartet. You had to sustain a solo for 10 minutes or more on a tune. Elvin, those are the kind of players that he attracted and needed for his music. You know, so you have to be at a certain level of expression and fluidity on your horn, and in the communication with Elvin.
Yeah.
To try to, because he's playing what you're playing, you're playing what he's playing, and that exchange we learned from the way Coltrane and him played together.
Yeah.
That's how they played together.
Yeah.
Coltrane was playing what Elvin was playing, Elvin was playing what Coltrane was playing.
Yeah.
And they just developed this whole approach about that, you know?
Yeah.
And Sonny Rollins and Max Roach played like that too, though. You know, Sonny Rollins and Max Roach. Sonny was playing what Max was playing, Max was playing what Sonny was playing. In the way of the articulation and the tempos, the rhythm, you know, of it all. But to play with Elvin and tour with him, play night after night, that ballad became everything.
Yeah.
Because everything else around that was cool. But that ballad had to something. Elvin's brushwork and the way he loved certain songs. There was a repertoire in Elvin's book
Yeah.
that he liked to touch on. And so you had to kind of know a lot of different tunes. If he felt like playing something, he'd just call it.
Yeah.
And now you're out there in the thick of things. So you had to have yourself together.
No, right. Yeah. So he didn't necessarily call the same tunes every night.
No,
Yeah.
especially the ballad.
Yeah.
He had freedom on the ballads.
Yeah.
I would play Sophisticated Lady sometimes.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm a Weaver of Dreams. He loved to play In Sentimental Mood.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of his go-to tunes.
Yeah.
And he'd give you freedom as the saxophone player to go to it. Not even call it. Just all of a sudden be in it. I learned a lot playing with Elvin.
Can you imagine?
It's a lot about trust. And then developing ideas that you can sustain a mood. And at the time in '87, I had been playing with Paul since '81, and I've been playing with Mel Lewis in 1980. Actually, the night my dad sat in with Mel's band, 1982, Elvin was there and showed up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and is at the bar, and they're hanging out. And my brother Patrick always talks about Elvin and my dad at the bar at the Vanguard.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always saying how awesome it was. You know.
That's a great family story.
Oh yeah, my brother Patrick, like he was so happy to be there. You know.
Yeah.
That was just happened to happen.
Yeah.
My dad heard Elvin with Coltrane, man. The Jazz Temple. That was another club in Cleveland that went away during the riots and all. It was right on Euclid and Mayfield, just as you're going up Murray Hill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Jazz Temple. McCoy, when I played with McCoy, he talked about playing there. That was 1965. I think my dad heard the quartet there.
Mm-hmm.
But also they played a lot at Leo's Casino, Coltrane band, with Eric Dolphy, 61. I started playing with McCoy Tyner in 1999 until his passing, which was just recently, more 2020, I think maybe.
Yeah, 2020, I think.
Yeah, you know, on one of his last gigs, we played at the Library of Congress in 2017, 18. They honored him, and I played that gig with Gerald Cannon on bass and Francisco Mela on drums. It was a thrill to play at the Library of Congress and honoring him.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was something else, man. But he was going through some kind of heart issues also, so he wasn't up to his usual. Like
Mm-hmm.
we played about 30 minutes as a trio, and then he came and played the next 30 minutes. with
Gotcha.
us,
Yeah.
You know, but being around McCoy throughout those years was deep, man. He was talked about Philadelphia every day. And his crowd, the cats that he came up with, born in '38, I mean, Lee Morgan, Archie Shepp, Reggie Workman, Jimmy Garrison, Rashid Ali, all the players from Philly, his generation, like the cats, Benny Golson, Jimmy Heath, was Coltrane's generation, right? Like 12, 15 years older. So Philly's legacy is real heavy with the players from Philly. But McCoy talked about Philadelphia every day and the people. And Cleveland was a part of it. Cleveland and Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago. McCoy talked about all those places because he played them all so many times, especially with the quartet, Coltrane. And Elvin also talked a lot about Cleveland. Elvin played here. His first time here, he played with Bud Powell and Tommy Potter. So we're talking 56 or 7, maybe either right at the same time of Sonny Rollins live at the Village Vanguard or just prior to that. Elvin talked about playing Cleveland with Bud Powell.
Yeah.
And then also Joe Alexander, tenor player that we mentioned before, one of the legends from Cleveland, who played on some Tad Dameron recordings. He was in Elvin's first band when he left Coltrane. Was Joe Alexander on tenor, who also played with Woody Herman in the 50s and into the 60s. But Joe passed in 71 or something. He had some heart issues and different things. But my dad was real close with him, and he was like the legendary cat from Cleveland that stood toe to toe with Johnny Griffin and Sonny Stitt and folks. Originally from Birmingham, Alabama, but came to Cleveland, I don't know, in the 40s.
Okay.
Whenever, you know. Yeah, he had a certain way of playing that was really dynamic in his tone, and he kind of was coming from, the way I feel it, Johnny Griffin, Eddie Lockjaw Davis, he had a combination of things in his playing, that was really personal. And the way he put it together was, he was a dynamic force on the saxophone, man.
Yeah.
That Ernie Krivda studied with and was around. And Joe was a big influence on a lot of cats, man, from Cleveland.
Yeah.
Not so much on record, but here, in the room.
Yeah.
With,
Yeah.
There were other tenor players here, too.
I'm sure.
That I grew up with, like Weasel Parker was another name.
Yeah.
Who was a great saxophone player, played with Count Basie's band.
Oh, cool.
Was tight with my dad. My dad's generation with Benny Bailey and Weasel Parker and Joe Alexander. And there was other cat that Ernie always talked about, who I never heard live. It was Dave O'Rourke. Was an amazing saxophone player. I've heard him on some recordings.
Yeah.
Who played with a technique that was really blistering. Could play like a triple time.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Like got around the horn, like incredible. Coming from Joe, but more younger generation.
Yeah.
That Ernie talked a lot about and heard a lot. Ernie's style and way of playing was very personal and beautiful. Also is really influenced by a lot of cats that he heard here, that he came up under.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we each learn from each other and are inspired by each other to go into some other places with the music, The more versatile you can be, the more people you're going to play with, and the more situations you're going to create for yourself. And that's something that has been a focus for me my whole life, And it's still happening today with the different folks I play with.
Yeah.
And record for different opportunities to record. I first started record for Blue Note Records in 1991, and I had 3 7-record consecutive deals that brought me into 2015.
What was it like working with Blue Note?
Well, first of all, having Bruce Lundvall's embrace was everything. Because he was one of the leading inspired record executives in jazz. Before Blue Note, with Columbia Records, with Miles and all kinds of people.
Yeah.
With the Brecker Brothers and Stan Getz. He started to lead Blue Note Records in 1985, I think. And I signed in 91. And it was amazing to be a part of that legacy and to release 25 sessions under my name.
Yeah.
Which each one was a very personal expression of music with people that I play with. And I presented every one of my records. I had a band that presented that music. And I established my Nanette that won a Grammy.
Yeah.
2000. I have 3 records with the Nanette. My band, Us Five, with the double drummers, with Esperanza Spalding. I have 3 records with that group, that quintet. My quartet with Hank Jones, Paul Motion, and George Mraz. I have 3 or 4 recordings with that lineup. Our group Soundprints that we're going to play this week, the Tri-C, the first recording was live in Monterey that Blue Note put out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible to have that embrace from Bruce and Don Was also at the end here, the last 3 or 4 records that Don was a part of. And he's leading Blue Note now, these days. I'm currently recording as a leader for ECM Records with Manfred Eicher, and having his embrace is very similar to the Blue Note experience of someone that really is a part of the music and embraces who you are, knows your history, and sees where it could go as far as documenting some new music all the time.
Yeah.
You know? It's not about recreating someone else's record that was a hit, which a lot of labels do.
Yeah.
And a lot of players fall into that. Trap, sometimes it's not a trap. That's the only way they can go, because that's what's happening.
Yeah.
They're not original. So they draw on someone else that was original, that had a hit, and they kind of try to recreate that, which can only really go so far. It might sell a lot of records, though.
Yeah.
You know, marketing wise, that's a big thing in marketing. But to try to reach forth and create some new ideas from your history, your history, not someone else's history, your personal history, that's been something I've been trying to tap into all these years. I've had a great opportunity with Bruce and Blue Note to do that, and now with ECM, I'm feeling that too.
What you've accomplished a ton over a number of decades. What do you still want to do?
Well, I want to play more beautiful. I want to create new atmospheres of music with different combinations of people, and I want to really focus on my composition and try to, these days I'm trying to write some music that has that gives everyone ideas to develop on within, to create music within the music that has its own life somehow, And I think as a composer, as an improviser, you're a composer, a spontaneous composer in the moment. But to compose some music that is about ideas that are open-ended is something that I'm working on and trying to really establish that as my foundation. And my newest recording I just recorded in May with Trio Tapestry taps in to those ideas. This is my 3rd Trio Tapestry record on ECM, and each one has led to the next moment. First was 2018, then we recorded at the end of 2019 before the pandemic, and that came out last year. And now we recorded a 3rd, Trio Tapestry 3. That's in the can. It might come out next spring. I have 3 records in the can right now for ECM. One coming out in November with Jacob Bro on guitar.
Yeah.
Him and I co-lead a septet with Larry Grenadier, Thomas Morgan, Anders Christensen on basses, 3 basses, Joey Barron and Jorge Rossi on drums, and Jacob and I, guitar and saxophone. So we have like an orchestra.
Yeah, it's like a mini orchestra.
That's going to be released in this November.
Yeah.
And then I did another trio with Tyshawn Sori on drums and Bill Frisell on guitar. and we recorded, and it's in post-production now, and that might come out in the fall of 2023.
Beautiful.
So we'll see about that, but the timing can always change.
Yeah.
It depends on what's going on, you know.
Do you get heavily involved in the mixing and production end of stuff?
Well, with Manfred, you're there with the mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's a master at post-production.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really have to say anything.
Yeah.
Once the music's recorded, and it's recorded, like the rough mix, when the playback is almost there, you know? And then he's just fines tune, and his real masterful genius is about post-production, the sequencing of things, and how the whole mood of one recording is a oneness about it. That's been his genius all these years, you know, which he's in his 50th year as a label. 2019 actually was 50 years.
Yeah,
The label started in 69, I think, you know. Anyway, with him, you don't have to be too involved. You can just kind of lay back and let it happen, you know, because he's got such great ears.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah. With all my Blue Note records, I produced them all, except like one Schofield was co-producer on, and Michael Kuskuna also co-produced the duets with Hank Jones that I did live at Jazz at Lincoln Center. But I was involved in all of the mixes and the mastering. With James Farber was my engineer, and Greg Colby was our engineer for the mastering. And those cats, man, like James did all of Mike Brecker's records, for example.
Yeah.
James is one of the first call engineers who I've worked with. He engineered almost all of my dates. So we had great communication, and the mixing sessions would be a pleasure and incredible to learn the inner music and how to put it together. You know, that's an art.
Yeah.
That's an art in hearing the inner parts. And doing things with Gunther Schuller was a big education for me. My recording Rush Hour with him, and then also Streams of Expression with my nonette, where he wrote The Birth of the Cool Suite. When you mixed with Gunther, he could hear how close someone was to the mic. Like, as an example. Like, he's conducting live, he's hearing it. Okay? He's hearing how it is. And then you go in the studio to mix, and one of the trumpet players was too close to the mic. He's hearing a forte on a mezzo forte.
Yeah.
But it's the guy's playing mezzo forte, but he's too close to the mic.
Yeah.
Gunther had his ears were that in tune. He could tell how close someone was to the mic.
Yeah.
The clarinet or whatever. You know. So I spent like hours mixing 8 bars with him one time.
Yeah.
With James. That was like, I ended up calling somebody on the phone who was too close to the mic. I said, hey man, you're messing up my whole thing. I don't have this, you know, because that clock is ticking, man. You know, I mean, and Gunther's like, he's not going to leave until he figures it out, you know. So there's a real art and a real focus you have to have in the studio, in the post-production of things, you know. That's why it's really great to be able to play live and document it. If everyone's in booths and then you have to put it together later, that's a whole other process.
Yeah.
You know, which I've been a part of dates like that also, so that's why I could speak on it. You know, Mike Brecker, talk about Mike again. He was such a master of the studio, man. He knew exactly. He was on the mic. He didn't budge.
Yeah.
Like our first record date with the Saxophone Summit, Gathering of Spirits.
Yeah.
Dave Liebman.
I was going to ask you about that.
And Mike and I. Like, we're listening back to the playback and we're trying to mix it. Mike's sound is like that. Liedman, he's moving around with the soprano. So his sound's going in and out like that. I wasn't as close as Mike, but I stayed solid on the mic, but I was a little more distant on the mic. But we have to match Brecker's sound. Mm-hmm. Because his is the most forceful, dominant sound.
Yeah.
So to try to do that later is like
difficult. Yeah.
Very difficult. And Mike, most of his dates as an improviser and a player, he was the only horn. Mm-hmm. Him and Randy on some stuff, but they were both. Randy also is on that mic, like incredible.
Yeah. Right.
Playing with those cats on the bandstand. Was really, really trippy because their sounds and the monitors and everything was so consistent. And
you guys didn't use clip-on mics?
Powerful. No, we did with Liebs and Mike live, mm-hmm. but not in the studio.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay.
Not in the studio.
Yeah. I had heard comments from John Coltrane referring to that about how he didn't like the placement of the mic sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Against the saxophone, it didn't capture the sound right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sonny talks about that too. Sonny never, reading some stuff about Sonny, it didn't seem like he enjoyed the studio experience. Mm-hmm. But he's made some of the most amazing records of all time.
Yeah.
And documented his ideas. I'm not sure, in his response and talking about it, was always never felt comfortable in the studio.
Yeah.
But maybe that's made him play so great all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sonny is like a treasure, man. He's like so amazing to speak with, and having his embrace also through the years has been really incredible for me, man.
Yeah.
God bless Sonny Rollins.
Yeah.
And all the folks that go with that, man, because we've lost a lot of people over this period here, especially in the pandemic time, but like just in general. So, I feel like it's really important to represent and to try to express myself in the most natural, organic, honest way.
How has the pandemic altered the projects and stuff that you've worked on over the last couple of years?
For me, I've been really lucky to be able to sustain myself in my teaching. And I have the Gary Burton Chair in Jazz Performance at Berklee College of Music since 9/11 was my first day.
Yeah.
On that with that position.
Oh, geez, yeah.
But through the years, it's been incredible sharing the blessings like that, and speaking about the reality of life and humanity, and trying to embrace things and be all accepting. And through the pandemic, it was difficult to try to do Zoom lessons and forum classes on Zoom, and that was an education, and I learned a lot, but it was really rewarding too to get next to people. I had students that were in South Korea and Australia and in the UK and in Italy and in Cyprus that I was doing Zoom classes with. Not even classes, just one-on-one exchanges, of ideas, and talking about the realities about the music and how to try to stay focused and practice. We have a time now to really take your time and develop some ideas. It's all about ideas and how to develop your ideas, and then when we all get back together and play as one, to feel each other's feelings. That's what I focused on a lot, and it was great, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In through all the years you played '80s and even early '90s. Did you ever imagine the digital world like it is today, where you can have a Zoom lesson with a student in another country?
Well, that whole technology has kind of been on the horizon in recording settings, laying tracks in different towns and all that. You could kind of see something churning that, but leading to this, it came on kind of quick.
It did,
you know. But I played some with Herbie Hancock, and through the years, and Herbie's always on the forefront of all kind of new things and technology and iPhones and all kinds of stuff. And he was always talking about things and working on ideas. And I guess being a keyboard player and being at the beginning of the whole synthesizer movements and things, him and Chick, they were always reaching forth into some new places in technology, you know. So I mean, I've kind of been in that world with them a little bit. As a saxophone player, I didn't go in those directions so much, but I've been on sessions that had those elements happening, and it's an ongoing lesson, man. About how to communicate. Well, that's what the bottom line is: how to communicate and how to share the blessings in the most positive way, you know.
Yeah. Your what you said about Herbie Hancock made me think of the guitar.
And all the different instruments that at the beginning of that whole thing with Miles, those cats, they didn't want to play the Fender Rhodes or any of those keyboards. Like Keith Jarrett was totally against that, but then he went there and laid down some incredible music on Live Evil and some of the dates he did with Miles playing more keyboard stuff. Him and Chick together with Miles, and Herbie at the very beginning with the Fender Rhodes and the Wurlitzer. But you know, Stevie Wonder, I think, influenced a lot of cats because he was one of the first people that really embraced that and it had its own voice, right, in the orchestration and sounds and things, you know. If you really get into that history, you could see how it's evolved to today. But for me, that's when I was just first starting to come on the scene, you know. So that all that technology was there, you know. I was like totally into the acoustic. And that's why my first dates in the 80s were all with European labels that embraced the acoustic jazz that was happening. In the 70s, the more fusion music was more electronic on all the labels in the States. But Soul Note, Black Saint, Enja Records, Steeplechase, some of the European labels that really embraced the acoustic and the concepts of the music too. The acoustic part of it was a part of it, but it was the way of playing also that was really creative and more exploratory, spontaneous explorations, rather than written fusion kind of music that was playing a score and repeating that when you played live. Where the acoustic side of things was more free, and that's the world that I was in my early recording as a leader, and that's really brought me into today for me, you know, into my music today.
Have you played Iwi at all?
I've never played the Iwi.
No.
No. I've played some electronic effects on my horn. But more through a microphone and stuff. But going to hear Steps Ahead and hearing Mike and the way he developed on that at his pad also was amazing. He could play. Well, his whole thing was like he wanted to be able to play anything that Chick Corea could play. He wanted to play, and he did. He developed a way of playing on the iwi that covered the complete orchestra, from the contrabass into the way altissimo, you know, and was a virtuoso on that horn. He spent a lot of time working on it.
Oh, he sure did.
Oh, yeah. And set the pace. And a lot of folks have touched it, but Mike really, like, I heard him live a few times with Steps Ahead in certain groups.
Sure.
Where he was like just so full of ideas and can play them for you. He played what he wanted you to hear.
Yeah.
Which is what it's about.
Yeah.
To be an improviser and to be creative and to develop a way of playing. He developed a way of playing on the saxophone for sure, but on the iwi and in his music.
Yeah, he was probably the first iwi artist that I really heard, I think.
Oh yeah, that really took it somewhere. Yeah. Oh yeah. Eddie Harris and certain cats did things with effects and electronics that inspired all of that.
Yeah.
You know? Eddie Harris was a virtuoso on the saxophone also, but also in the effects of harmonizing and doing things.
Yeah.
On the horn with certain technology. Yeah, Eddie Harris is very influential.
I've seen videos of you playing the alacron.
Yes.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
The double soprano saxophone. Okay, so this is an instrument that is a new instrument. That is 2 soprano saxophone bodies with 2 necks into 1 mouthpiece with 2 chambers. So you have 2 reeds. So when you played full body down to 2 horns, you can harmonize. The way Francois Louis, who made this instrument, there's 1 keyboard down the center, okay? 2 saxophones, 2 sopranos with 1 keyboard. Now each key is split in 2 parts.
Okay.
So you have the top part and the bottom part. So the bottom part, if you play the center of the key, you close both holes. Let's say you're playing an F. Okay?
Yeah.
You're playing in the center of each key. So you're playing an F on both horns, unison. You have 2 octave keys, so you could split octaves.
Okay.
Okay, that's first. Now, if I lift up the bottom part of the F and the G, it opens tone holes on this horn.
Okay.
So now I'm playing an A on this horn and an F on that horn. And you can do that on every note.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
With all these intervals. So if you're playing down the center of each key, you're playing in unison. As you release the bottom parts, this body is the main note. This body, you're opening holes that's harmonizing with that. Okay. Okay, so that's a deep study right there.
Yeah.
I had the horn for about 5-6 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And I recorded a bunch on. Yeah, there was a long time I just stared at it. Didn't even touch it.
Yep.
Started trying to, you're learning it. You're
sure.
seeing what it is and what the possibility. So, and then the harmonics that happen and when the way you use the octave key and there's all these tones that happen, right? Then you take this, if I turn the horn this way and I am only vibrating on 1 horn, I got 1 soprano sound. The other reed I'm not playing on. So that horn is silent. So you could turn it and play on 1 horn.
Yeah.
And then just by changing the position, you have the 2 reeds. Now you're vibrating on. Then you could go back. So then I started to develop a way of playing 1 tone, 1 single soprano.
Yeah.
And so a lot of ideas there, and then at a certain point, harmonize inside the phrasing. So it's all about phrasing, how you could breathe, and how you could develop your chops to be able to do things.
Yeah, you seem very comfortable on it.
Well, yeah, you know what? It became real natural. and like almost second nature.
Yeah.
Because I was practicing and playing on it a lot.
Yeah.
At first I was like, you know, you think you're dealing with the piano. Once I played with Schofield, I realized it was like the guitar. Like this hand here, he's changing, he's playing on one thing here, and he's changing things in here, 2 and 3 notes. You don't have to play like big voicings, like on a piano.
Yeah.
You could play 2-note voicings and 3-note, like little things that harmonize inside the melody, right? More like a guitar would, you know. And once I played with Sco and we got a sound together with the holochrome and the guitar, it was like, whoa, dig that. That's something else, man. Yeah. You know, once I started to, you know, because you develop ideas and you start to learn how to approach stuff. So I started to learn how to approach that instrument, and I could play any tune now. I could play Stella by Starlight. I could play Cherokee and move through, you know, because I'm playing the saxophone and I'm playing on those harmonies. I'm playing melodies. But now I choose which tones to harmonize in my line.
Yeah.
It's all about the line and the phrasing.
Yeah.
And once that started to happen, I was starting to like develop something.
Is it a standard soprano mouthpiece?
Francois made, he made, it's like 2 mouthpieces fused together.
Okay.
2
It
soprano
looked like it was
mouthpieces.
wider or something.
Yeah, it is. It's wide. It's as wide as 2 mouthpieces, but somehow together. They're not separated.
Yeah.
But the when they fit on the 2 necks, it holds it together.
Gotcha.
You know.
Okay.
Now, Adolph sax would have been 200 or something. Or there was some anniversary that I brought it back to Belgium, and it was in the Adolph Sax Museum, and Francois is showing it at certain exhibitions and things. So I don't have that horn right now.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I don't have it. It's in Belgium. There's only one. And he has it, and he's been showing it, and
Is he gonna
I want to get it back.
Yeah.
Well, it took him like 5 years to make it.
Yeah.
So we would need some financier. We would need some kind of backing to maybe make another one, or make a few that he could lease out or rent. Let's say if I wanted it to do a record date on. Right now there's only that one horn, which he meets me in Europe sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And I play it on a concert here and there, you know. But he has it, and I don't want the responsibility of having it really, because it's the only horn.
You don't want to lose it or break it.
And well, just insurance-wise,
Yeah.
it was starting to be a little pricey to just be responsible for this instrument.
Sure.
You know. But Francois is a genius, man, and he developed an instrument that's playable to harmonize on, and it's incredible.
That's
Yeah.
sounds incredible.
I feel so happy I was able to document it on some of my important recordings with a couple of my bands, and I miss it.
Yeah. Well, perhaps you'll see it again.
Yeah, no, I will. And actually, I'm going to call him about when I play Ghent. Maybe he'll bring it.
Yeah, very nice.
And I could touch on it on a few. I could vibrate on some tones.
Yeah.
On a concert.
Yeah.
He's made all my mouthpieces for my saxophones too since the early 80s.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
And my wooden tenor saxophone mouthpiece first got in 1985, and I'm playing on maybe the 3rd or 4th one he's made for me right now. And they're beautiful instruments, all in
You play on wood
themselves.
mouthpieces.
Yeah, I play on wood. It's a granadilla wood, like a clarinet.
Okay.
And it vibrates with the reed instead of a reed against a mouthpiece.
Yeah.
So there's a certain airiness and a certain thing you can do with your notes that you can't do on a metal mouthpiece or other mouthpieces. Just in the air, and the way you can vibrate on it, from really triple pianissimo to triple forte with the same color and sound.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's a really incredible experience, and Francois really puts a lot of love and passion into what he does.
Yeah.
Making his reeds also, and ligatures, and
Yeah.
mouthpieces.
His ligatures are famous. A lot of my comments.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
Oh yeah. He's made me a couple silver mouthpieces that I'm playing on also that
Okay.
are really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
And that have their own kind of dark brilliance. That's the only way I could say.
You've been playing the Borgani saxophones for quite some time. Why did you start playing those?
You know, around 1999, I guess, I was approached by this company, Orfeo Borgani.
Mm-hmm.
He's the grandson of this his great grandfather who started the company in Macerata, Italy, near Ancona, and it's a beautiful instrument that's hand pounded brass. And Jan Garbarek, the curved soprano that he played, was made by Orfeo's grandfather, or great grandfather, in the 20s or whatever.
Yeah.
His father didn't want to deal with Selmer so much, so he made more student model horns, I'd say in the 60s and 70s. And then I hooked up with Orfeo. When he took the company over, he wanted to really make an instrument that could be on the marketplace, you know. And he makes some beautiful horns. So I've been playing on Borgani saxophones now for quite some time.
Yeah.
But I also play my Selmers and my Busher and my King Super 20. I have a nice collection of different beautiful instruments that I love to play.
How many saxophones do you have?
Well, I don't even want to go there. But just the tenors, I have a good 12 tenors
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
right now.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of altos and different horns, you know. I had a G mezzo soprano made for me, 2010. This instrument maker, Peter Jessen, in Copenhagen. So it's in the key of G. It's up a fourth from concert. And it's a beautiful, I've been documenting some things on this mezzo in recent times, since then. So I have a collection of a couple of special horns that were made for me. And my model on the Borgani is a silver, brushed silver with gold keys.
Yeah.
And the way the neck is bent, and the palm keys, and certain things they've done for me that I feel really comfortable with and wanted as far as how it feels. And it's made more like a Kahn or a King than a Selmer.
Yeah.
Which I like that, because a Selmer is the Rolls Royce of the saxophone.
Yes. Yeah.
So I wanted a Bentley,
Yeah.
which is in the Borgani,
Yeah.
you know, not to compete with the Selmer.
Yeah.
So to have it feel different. So it's more straight action, like a Kahn or a King.
Yeah.
And it vibrates beautiful, and every horn plays different because it's hand pounded brass.
Yeah.
It's not machined,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So each horn has its own feeling to it, you know.
Yeah.
And I've documented a lot on the different Borganis throughout my recorded catalog.
Yeah.
You know.
It's beautiful.
But my main horns are still my Selmers.
Yeah.
My balanced action that my dad bought new when he came out of the service in the late 40s, 47 maybe, 40, you know. And the horn that he had when he in the service is this tenor that's back here behind us, is a Busher 400 that my grandfather bought my dad when he was in high school, and he played in the service. And when he came home from the service, he gave that horn to my Uncle Nick, who was 10 years my dad's senior, and was a beautiful saxophone player in his own right. And he played that horn his whole life. And when he passed in his early 90s, my cousins gave me back that horn that my dad had given to my Uncle Nick, you know.
Yeah.
So I have a couple saxophones that are from my family.
Yeah.
My dad's Balanced that he bought new, and a Mark VI that he bought in 1966. When I got his Balance, then I was 14 or something, 14 or 15, and I have his Mark VI too that he got at that time. So I have like 3 of my dad's horns, which is great.
That is.
Yeah, because they vibrate beautiful, and I'm feeling the spirit in it.
Oh yeah. Was there anything else specifically that that you would like to cover, or?
Well, I think we covered a lot of ground.
We
you
certainly
know,
did, yeah.
I just feel really proud to live in the world of music, and it's such a blessing to be able to share the blessings like this throughout these years, and looking forward to being more expressive in the future.
Yeah. Joe Lovano, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you on Friday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.